I'm not proud of where I was when the workout show reached out to me for a body transformation challenge. Spoiler alert, I'm going to be very honest here, because I think honesty is key in achievable weight loss. So let me introduce myself. I've been an aspiring journalist but discouraged by the job market, so the workout show was an excellent opportunity. I've also been significantly overweight for a while. Call me a neckbeard, a NEET, a basement dweller, it all fit. But with a little bit of help, that's not where I'm headed now. When the show reached out to me, I weighed 245 pounds, which might not seem like much overweight except I'm only 5'7". According to various sources, for me and fellow short kings at 5'7", our healthy weight's upper limit is around 163 pounds. Needless to say, I had a lot of work to do. Before we start, if you're considering a similar journey, go talk to a doctor. Dramatic physical changes like this can be hard on the body, and you need an expert opinion and guidance on both. First thing was cutting out junk food. Junk food was a pretty big part of my life. It wasn't just the types of meals I ate, it was everything in between. All the snacks, sodas, treats, etc. that filled the space between meals. This would be a problem area for me for a couple of very good reasons. Reason number one is my mental health. Remember when I said I was going to be honest? Well, I wasn't in the best mental health 5 months ago and hadn't been for a while. Struggling to find a job, massive student bills looming over me, and the expectations of literally all of my family was a bit much to bear. I ended up moving in with a rural relative and turning to overconsumption to fill the hole in my life. And you know what helps when you're depressed? Food. I used to join the crowd in making fun of fat people, and then I became one and was the target of ridicule. Well, on the rebound, I'm not so quick to mock anybody, because I've been there, that dark place where a sweet treat is literally the only serotonin you're going to get out of your life. Everyone's got struggles, maybe think about that next time you mock someone for being overweight. Giving up this daily and brief spot of bliss was going to be extremely hard, harder than any exercise routine. What I learned very quickly is that the battle to be fit is mental, not physical. Your brain will quit long before your muscles ever do. I did my research and avoided any type of crash diet. I also got some professional help courtesy of the show to navigate this journey in a healthy way. I wasn't looking forward to the professional help, because who likes to talk about their problems? But I also wasn't looking forward to the personal trainer I'd be working with. I expected a gym bro, the type you see being an ass on TikTok and IG Reels, and if I'm being honest, the whole gym bro culture is what made going to the gym incredibly intimidating for me. Along with my personal struggles, the idea of being made fun of or interacting with a bunch of pre-workout junkie gym bros made me not want to ever set foot in a gym. If it wasn't for the show, I never would have either. But I was pretty surprised to find out my personal trainer was pretty chill, and so was the gym. It was full of, well, normal people, and sure, there were some super buff guys and gals there, but there was also a significant amount of just normal people, even some pretty overweight people like me. It instantly made me feel better, and so did Brett, my PT. I thought I'd be talked down to or intimidated or just flat out bullied into exercising, but to be honest, Brett was pretty encouraging throughout, even with my limitations. We mutually decided that the best thing for me was to take it slow. Brett told me that the biggest reason people quit body transformation challenges is that they try to adopt lifestyles that they can't live with. If you hate what you're doing, you're going to give up, so we sat down and tallied everything I ate on a day-to-day basis to include snacks. First step was to switch my main courses. I didn't have to eat a large pizza every time I ordered pizza. I also didn't have to get the cheese sticks or any other add-on either, and then wash it down with a liter of Pepsi. Instead of cutting out pizza entirely, I downsized to a small or personal pizza and skipped on the sides and soda. I also switched where I ordered from. Did you know there's over 2,400 calories in one large Papa John's pepperoni pizza? That's without any other add-ons. There's also 48 grams of saturated fat, and you're not supposed to eat more than 30 per day as a man or 20 as a woman. There's 240 milligrams of cholesterol, and you should really not be eating more than 200 milligrams a day max no matter your sex. For sodium, well, you're not supposed to exceed 2,300 milligrams a day. Try and guess how much sodium a large Papa John's pepperoni pizza has. 6,480, and again, that's without any extra toppings or add-ons. I found a local pizza place with a small margarita pizza that was only 910 calories with 17 grams of saturated fat. Obviously, this isn't great either, but the point is I was making an improvement in the right direction and creating a calorie deficit from where I was starting from. Instead of 2,400 calories, I was down to 910. Also, the local pizza was cooked in a wood-fired oven and tasted a lot better than Papa John's. I wouldn't be having pizza every day though. This was just a way of downsizing my calorie and fat intake from its average levels. I swapped from burgers to chicken sandwiches, double quarter pounder with cheese, 740 calories, McCrispy chicken sandwich, 470 calories, large fries, 480 calories, medium fries, 320 calories. With some changes, I went from a 1,220 calorie meal to a 790 calorie meal, creating a deficit of 430 calories, almost an extra order of large fries. Oh, and I ditched the large soda, 290 calories for water. Another big change I made was to start cooking for myself and to change what kind of things I cooked. Like most people who struggle with depression issues, cooking for yourself can be a serious chore, and often we take the lowest effort path, like frozen food you can just throw in the oven or microwave. These meals, though, are horrible for you. A single Stouffer's frozen pot pie has 530 calories and 31 grams of fat. Instead, I started making actual meals with a list of recipes that Brett, my personal trainer, helped me with. I thought I'd be eating nothing but salads, but instead we focused on meals I actually liked and worked from there. Again, the goal was to start creating a calorie deficit. So things like pasta and tacos stayed in the meal plan, but what changed is how I made them and how much of them I ate. Brett told me to judge how much I would normally cook for myself and then cut that by 20% for the first month. I also changed from using things like ground beef to ground turkey, which really wasn't as noticeable as you might think, especially in pasta or even tacos. I mean, it was noticeable to an extent, but it really wasn't enough to put me off eating ground turkey or making me miss beef. Plus, the health difference was significant. Per the USDA, 3 ounces of the average ground beef portion contains 235 calories, 16 grams of fat, and 6.2 grams of saturated fat. Meanwhile, 93.7 ground turkey contains only 181 calories, 10 grams of fat, and 2.5 grams of saturated fat. However, you can keep the beef if you swap to pricier 93.7 ground beef, which contains 178 calories, 8 grams of fat, and 3.3 grams of saturated fat per 3-ounce portion. So if you really miss beef, you can trade a bit more saturated fat for that red meat. Up next was the snacks. I'm not gonna lie, this was tough. Like I said earlier, snacking was part of my struggles with good mental health. No matter how bad things were, a chocolate ice cream cone could pick me right up, if only temporarily. The thing is, I could get snacks if I wanted to, at a time when achieving other things in life was extremely difficult, if not impossible. A lot of overweight people are the same way. When life isn't giving you the things you hoped for, it's easy to replace that feeling with a delicious snack. What we decided to do was to set limits on my snacking that I could live with. Instead of buying candy or soda or chips every day, we moved to every other day. I started seeing it as a reward. I could get through a day knowing tomorrow I'd get to enjoy something I really liked. Slowly, over time, as the other parts of my diet changed, so did my snacking. The time between snacks grew, without ever going away completely. Now, 50 pounds and 5 months later, I allow myself 2 weekly snacks. But facing those mental demons that prompted me to snack so much was a big part of this challenge, and the hardest part. Like I said earlier, the brain will quit long before the body will. I worked with a therapist on developing an action plan, surprisingly easy stuff. But it's time to be really honest again. At that point in my life, I was so discouraged I was flat out apathetic. I didn't have any goals or hopes anymore. It seemed like trying was pointless, because things always ended the same. Thus, I didn't try, I didn't set any goals, and I had no real hopes for the future. Much like my dietary and fitness journey, we started small. Incremental changes I could actually live with. The first thing I did was to take a walk, every single day, sometime out of the house to get me moving, and not sitting behind my computer screen all day long. It wasn't so much about physical fitness as it was about mental fitness, and I quickly realized how awful living my entire life indoors had felt. Sunshine on my face and even the cool air in the mornings or at night felt refreshing, and I was surprised to find myself thinking far less gloomy thoughts afterwards. By the way, if you spend a lot of time indoors, try to add vitamin D supplements to your diet. It took a while to take effect for me, but it made a significant difference as far as my mental health. We're meant to get vitamin D from the sun, but most of us barely spend any time outdoors anymore, thanks to our modern lifestyles, and we're paying the price. Next, I focused on building a routine. A lot of my pitfalls resulted from a lack of purpose. If I just woke up and had no general plan for the day, it was easy to slip into the ruts I'd been living in, and easy to start eating a bunch of snacks or crap I wasn't supposed to. So instead, I focused on building a routine that would propel me through the day from the moment I got up until evening time. And it worked wonders. Knowing what I should be doing at what time throughout my day gave me a sense of purpose and direction. Like the banks of a river, it guided the flow of my life and made it difficult to stray off course. It also helped to fend off the negativity that I'd been dwelling in Just having a sense of purpose and direction grounded me against negative thoughts. I also took a stance against negative thoughts themselves. Before this, it was too easy to sit and stew in my negativity, compounding my depression and angst. I started making an effort to police what I thought and how I thought. Instead of reinforcing my condition with negative self-talk about myself or my life, I started to silence that voice. Anyone who's ever been depressed or overwhelmed knows that it can be cathartic to just complain internally or externally. But I made an effort to stop complaining and stop framing myself, my life, and even other people in negative ways. I won't lie to you, that was pretty tough. You get addicted to that terrible inner monologue because it's so cathartic. It feels good to complain, and it can be a stress reliever to be negative when your life is negative, but it's also incredibly destructive, and silencing that inner voice can be extremely difficult and frustrating. Ultimately, though, it was one of the best things I did. Hey, if you've made it this far, you either are or were like me at one point. So you and I both know how stupid it feels when someone tells you to think positively, and how annoying it is. But if you can't think positive, at least don't actively think negatively. You'd be amazed at the difference it makes. The final part of the mental health portion of this entire ordeal was to try and broaden my horizons. The most dangerous part about depression is how it keeps you isolated and away from people, and I'll admit the last thing I wanted to do was be around people, especially with my self-esteem so low. My therapist recommended I volunteer somewhere, though. She said that having a sense of gratitude for what I do would help keep me thinking more positively, and it would also put me around people who had made the choice to volunteer their time, and thus were likely more generous and caring than the norm. Remember how I said we needed to be honest in this? Well, I hated the idea at first. If I didn't have a financial incentive to do everything I'd been told to do, I might not even have gone to that first volunteer session. But I did, and I ended up liking spending time around other people. It also felt really good to be helping others. I was surprised and a little ashamed on the way home, ashamed at how hard I had fought internally against going, when deep down I think I knew I'd enjoy it. Whatever your thing is, even if it isn't volunteering, find it and do something to be around people and get out of your own head. The group I ended up volunteering with turned out to be hugely supportive of my entire journey, and I ended up being friends with a few, doing stuff outside of volunteering, which helped my mental health transformation even more. So I left the physical fitness part of this entire journey for last because, to be honest, it's the least important. If your eating habits aren't good and your mental health is bad, then it doesn't matter how tough your physical fitness routine is. You'll never transform your body the way you hope to because you'll end up hating your time spent at the gym or exercising and just quit eventually. You have to get your basic lifestyle habits straight first so that it can be a foundation for more profound physical changes later. So I started light. Those mental health walks got longer and longer, and eventually I graduated to jogging. I started jogging a quarter mile, then walking another mile and 3/4, then graduated to jogging a half mile and walking the rest, then jogging a mile, then the full 2 miles. It was slow, incremental, but more importantly, it was comfortable. It was all change I could live with. I wasn't being overwhelmed all at once like those stupid fat loss reality shows. I was going at my own pace, climbing ever higher little by little. The gym portion of my training was kind of embarrassing. I had to start with a bar free of any weights, and that made me feel pretty bad about myself. But Brett was really supportive, and to my surprise, so was the rest of the staff, and even some of the gym patrons that I got to know. The gym really wasn't as intimidating a place as I thought it would be, though it was pretty awkward to be doing exercises with just an empty bar to start out with. We focused on high reps with low weight to train my body, and again, it was all about a routine that I was comfortable with and could maintain. Brett literally asked me, if I disappeared tomorrow, would you honestly keep doing this? In reference to my routine. To my surprise, I found that yes, I would and could. The exercises were achievable, and I knew how to perform them on my own. I could easily see myself buying some equipment to do this at home, or even just continuing my gym membership all on my own. Gradually, we added more weight and more exercises, but Brett didn't really start pushing me into what he called pain and gains land until halfway through the second month. Up until then, he said his focus was to prepare me for a real workout. My muscles were basically mush. Throwing them against the wall with a strenuous workout routine right off the bat would likely just cause long-term damage. That's why I shouldn't pay attention to reality fat loss shows, he said. Those things not only set up people for failure, but can do serious risk to their bodies. He reminded me every single time I was in that gym that there was no competition. Despite the assignment being to lose 50 pounds in 5 months, if I only lost 10 pounds in that time period, then I was still 10 pounds closer to my goal than where I'd started from. This wasn't a race, there was no finish line. As Brett said, all that mattered is accruing deficits, no matter how big or how small. Deficit in calories, deficit in negative thinking, deficit in apathy. So that's what I did. Every 2 weeks I reassessed where I was and decided to create a slightly wider deficit. More jogging and walking, less soda and snacks, smaller portions. I changed what I ate slowly. At first it was 2 healthy meal days a week, then 3, then 4. Eventually I got to the point where every meal was relatively healthy, and those days that I did splurge, well, I was splurging, having already created a deficit. I also drank a lot of water. Like, a lot. Sometimes you feel like you're hungry, but in reality you're just dehydrated. Filling your belly with water can make you feel a lot less hungry than normal. One of the little life hacks that I created for myself was to give myself reasons to leave the house. For example, normally I would buy enough groceries to last for a week or 2, but instead I started buying only enough for 1 or 2 days. This did 2 things. It let me focus on exactly what I was getting and why, which made it harder to throw in extra junk that I didn't need or random snacks. Second, it gave me an excuse to walk the 1.5 miles to the store several times a week. I also did this with things like the mail. Instead of sticking outgoing mail in the house's mailbox, I walked to a public mailbox a half mile away. All these small changes began to work together to create real significant change in my life. Each part of my plan of attack mutually supported the others, diet directly supported my mental health and physical exercise, and so on. I think though the biggest change was mental, and it was the most important. I think if I had never tackled my mental health directly, I wouldn't have lasted in this transformation challenge even if I was being paid. Or I wouldn't have been as successful, and I wouldn't continue afterwards. I've said it twice before now, and it bears repeating a third time. Your brain will quit long before your body does. And it's strange how good food and exercise directly affects your mental health. Changing my diet slowly over time just made me feel better. I didn't feel so bloated and loaded down, tired from what I ate. My face also cleared up of acne significantly, which helped me feel better about myself, and being active gave me a serotonin boost too. Maybe not as dramatic as the bliss of a chocolate cheesecake, but I was surprised at just how much better my mental attitude became the more active I was. Something strange started happening around the 3-month mark. I was seeing signs of muscle growth, and my waistline had shrunk significantly enough that belts were no longer optional. I figured in another 2 months or so I'd need new belts and new pants. This all made me feel good, but what surprised me is how bad I felt about doing things from my old life. Eating a bunch of junk food honestly started feeling gross to me, and I was craving things like fruits. If I overate, I felt gross, uncomfortable, and bloated. It motivated me to push myself harder at my next exercise session and to stop overeating. Even my relationships with people changed. Like any good neckbeard, I used to spend a significant amount of time fighting with people on social media. But I realized I was just looking for the validation of a like or upvote because I felt so bad internally about myself and my life. And I was venting a lot of my frustration out on other people. Everyone knows it feels so good to go off on someone. It's a cathartic act. Later though, you feel terrible about your reply and about seeing that notification letting you know there's a reply that's probably going to make you feel even worse. I started being drawn to more positive parts of social media, places where people were more encouraging than not. Yeah, that sounds cheesy, I know, because I used to think so. But man, at some point, you just get fed up with the self-reinforcing negativity. Maybe it was the impact volunteering had had in my life, but I started really appreciating positive interactions more and seeing good things happen to people. I hope you found this whole thing helpful. More than anything, that was really my intent. I can't tell you what exercises to do and how many to do, so sorry if that's what you came here looking for. You should talk to a fitness professional about that and about what's right for you. What I can do though is share my transformation journey, point out the steps I took, and encourage you to follow in the same general direction. And always remember, there is no race, there is no competition. It's all about building deficits in your life, no matter how small or incremental.